So the South African National Editors Forum has raised concerns over the influence of big tech companies such as Google and Meta on news publications. The concerns were raised with the Competition Commission at its 3-week media and digital platforms market inquiry. Fair compensation to journalists and accountability from digital platforms were among the issues that were raised by SANEF. Tech giant X, formerly known as Twitter, declined to participate in the inquiry. Let's now discuss some of these concerns with the Executive Director of SANEF, Reggy Moalusi, who's now joining us via video link. Reggy, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for speaking about the concerns that have been raised. And I see also Sbu Ngalwa speaking about the algorithms that are used by these tech companies and the impact that that has on news publications.
Good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to your viewers. No, absolutely, man. The submission was really quite clear, and it was clear in that regard to say, as SANEF, we are particularly clear on what we want, and then the algorithms, as you rightly say, I mean, they are really in relation to the big tech companies not wanting to disclose anything to us with regards to, you know, how they generate their revenue, or what are the numbers they get from that. We are essentially in the dark. And these are tech companies that have been operating in South Africa for a number of years now. And in those number of years, if you remember, they are not regulated. We as the media, we are in South Africa, we are bound to abide by South African law. We have to subscribe to the press code. We have to subscribe to the BCCSA. But these big tech companies, you know, they are operating, and they are taking all these profits out. Hence, we said to the Competition Commission, we need to have a different conversation. And it's a journey that we've been at in terms of internal discussions right up until we wrote to the Commission early last year to say, perhaps we need this inquiry.
Yeah, and I guess the question also around this is who owns the content? Who has the IP over the content that is published on these sites? If you speak to some people, news junkies especially those people that are on X, they'll tell you the first thing that when they wake up in the morning, they take their phone and look at what's happening on X, which are the stories that are trending, and look at what even news publications that have handles on X are tweeting about what is on their platforms.
Well, look, X, I mean, with an example that you make, X they argue that they are third-party, you know, news disseminators. Fine, they are third-party news disseminators, but for the mere fact that they also want to have credible news entities on their platforms like Newzroom Afrika, and that content is being used by the same users that they have. So hence we say if ever Newzroom has an account and that account is there, and X needs to take up responsibility. It cannot be just a case of saying to Newzroom, no, look, you don't have to post your news here. We all know that people use social media platforms. But most people, Aldrin, who go to social media platforms, they go there to follow Newzroom. Why? Because it's a credible news source. That's why they are there. And X wants to associate with that. So they need to take up some form of responsibility to say, no, it cannot be that you are going to dismiss Newzroom and say, but we never said to you, don't post your content. We never said to our followers, they should follow you. It cannot be like that. It's a very cheap way of getting out of this responsibility, and we are saying it cannot be, and the Competition Commission needs to have a different conversation with them. As you said, in your intro, it's quite unfortunate that X doesn't want to participate here, but we are looking forward to hearing what other companies such as your Meta and Google have to say when the Commission calls them up.
Will you be asking the Competition Commission to actually subpoena X to participate in this inquiry, considering how influential the platform is? And again, we're heading into an election. It's a very powerful platform.
It's a very powerful platform. I mean, we have also written to X ourselves as SANEF to say we would like to have a meeting with them, particularly regarding the elections and how their platform is used for the elections and all of that. But, we have received no response from them. So I think to answer your question, that lies on the Commission. The Commission is being led by a very reputable senior economist and acting commissioner, James Hodge. He's being assisted by a media veteran, Paula Frey. So we think the commission will have a real look at this and say, we are hopeful. And as we said, it's quite unfortunate that X cannot come on board. And we were hoping that they can. Particularly, Aldrin, if you look at our previous statements, particularly on X, where we release statements that our women journalists get bullied, harassed, intimidated on this platform. So this platform, if you look at the South African context, is very key. It's being used by many. So it cannot be that they are just going to say to the commission, no, we don't want to come and present, and we leave it at that.
Do you think, though, that the South African legislature should also step in here? Because we know that, for instance, Meta, TikTok, as well as X, they have been subpoenaed to appear before the Senate in the U.S. because these are important platforms, very influential platforms, and they're also changing the way people consume news and the way we understand news to be delivered.
Absolutely. We are, I mean, look, ultimately, we would like legislation to step in. The Commission has started with a 3-week presentations at their offices in Pretoria. Then we are hoping by the end of the year, when they come back to us, they'll come back to us with something solid. And ultimately, we want legislation. And we, as the fourth estate, we say that legislation particularly has to come through, for what we face, for that kind of harassment that we face, and what, as I just said, what our women journalists face. But in the end, we are, as the fourth estate, we always say we are also law-abiding. We are bound by the laws of this country, and we follow them. So we don't see any reason for a company such as X to come in here to South Africa and operate without any legislation, and then they can go and want to dismiss a request from a statutory body like the Competition Commission.
Also, though, when we look at, Reggie, when we look at traditional news media, would you agree that traditional news media has been really rigid in evolution of how it produces news and how it also delivers news to its audience, to such an extent that platforms such as X and platforms such as Google are able to usurp the power that was once held by traditional media?
Look, Aldrin, the challenges faced by traditional media over the years are well documented. I mean, if you look at South Africa, where we at when it comes to the circulation of newspapers, for instance, if you look at how online platforms are trying to make revenue and cover their overheads. But I mean, that is not only a South African problem. It's a global problem when it comes to the news media itself. But I mean, you look at that and you say, have we been rigid? I'll say perhaps we can debate that in terms of the word rigid. But my take from where I'm at is that South African journalism has been up there with the best. We have been doing quite a lot, in fact, with very little resources at our disposal. You look at the very state of the newsroom report of how many journalists were there between, say, 2003 and 2018. We have lost close to 6,000 journalists in all these years. But still, South African media still wants to produce, content that's credible, content that South African audiences can use. So the platforms themselves, they always argue that we are not the media. We don't have newsrooms. We are not news producers. So if you are not news producers, then who do you rely on? Google doesn't have a journalist at the moment, or X, who's covering the murder of 4 people with regards to the missing child in the Western Cape. It's our media, it's our journalists who are there. It's our journalists who report on that. So for you, when a news entity has spent money to send journalists out there to cover these, and you just think that you can just take that content, aggregate it, and then use it on your platform without wanting to be accountable for that, then no. Then we should have the conversation to say, how do you compensate for the usage of that content?
Yeah, but also how the newsroom is run. If you look, for instance, is that the department, Wits University has introduced a health MBA. It's a health MBA for doctors, medical practitioners who want to run hospitals, who want to run clinics. Do we need something similar for the newsroom? Because at the end of the day, we do need money to keep the journalists in the jobs. They need to be paid at the end of the day. Where would that money be coming from if there is this frosty relationship also between how we understand news, the newsroom, as well as the advertisers?
No, absolutely. I mean, Aldrin, look, this inquiry also, much as we're talking fair compensation and all of that, we are not saying it will be the silver bullet to solve all our problems. As the media, as an industry, we are also saying we are having our own internal conversations with regard to the sustainability of journalism. And one of the conversations that we are having, we are saying, how do we sustain journalism in a digital age? How do we make sure that for years, generations to come, journalism is still what it is and the quality there is? Hence, you make a good example in terms of the academia world, where we're saying to our media academics who are SANEF members, where we say to them, look, the young children who are coming to your institutions, we need to start also teaching them as part of their courses as well, to say the curriculum covers revenue generation, because at the end of the day, salaries must be paid. Salaries are the most expensive overhead in any business. So that's how newsrooms should be run. That's how newsrooms should really be, anchored in terms of this is how we generate money. Hence, and also we run what we call a community digitization project for community media, where we are teaching community media to say, yes, you are working in your community, this is what you do, but digitize and look for revenue options.
Yeah.
Look for where you can find the money so that you sustain the entity. So while we are doing that, we are also, the market inquiry, as I said, is the one part, but we are having different other conversations on the side. And those conversations are saying, journalism is not going to die. Journalism is not dying. Yes, we have seen a huge decline in newspaper circulation, but the newspaper circulation is dead.
A quick question, Reggie, that I have here from one of our viewers on ex-introvert saying that, or asking rather, is ICASA part of this media competition inquiry? Do you know whether ICASA is part of the competition inquiry, Reggie? And I guess this is also based on the issue around licenses. Who gets the broadcast licenses for sporting games?
Now, as far as I know, I've looked at the people all the entities that have been invited to come speak, starting with ourselves on Monday. For the next 3 weeks, I didn't see ICASA's name on the Commission's invitation list.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Reggy Moalusi, who is the SANEF's Executive Director, speaking to us on the Competition Commission's media marketing inquiry, looking into platforms such as Google, Meta, as well as X, and the impact that it's having on the media landscape.